Hello, everybody. This is Coresair Mack, President of the Illinois Mental Health Counselors Association. And today I am joined by none other than the very famous, the very awesome, the very amazing Nadia Johnson. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for inviting me to do this interview. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, everybody wants to know, how did you become interested in counseling?
Well, that's a good story. My husband and I were youth group leaders at our church for high school youth group for about 12 years. And during that time, the kids would always gravitate toward me to talk about their issues and things they were struggling with. And so quite a few people, including their parents, would say to me, why don't you go to school and become a professional counselor? You're really good at this. So that's how I became interested. And so at age 44, I took my very first college class in our community college.
Oh, okay.
So I started late in life, and it's worked out beautifully.
All right, perfect. I am very happy to hear that. So
Yeah.
that perfectly segues into that next question. So where did you go for your undergrad and graduate degree? And now that you mentioned community college, where'd you go for that also?
That was Rock Valley College in Rockford, Illinois. I started there in a human services program. So it was an excellent program with counseling classes, counseling techniques. So human development had a really good start. Then I got my bachelor's and master's at National Louis University.
Oh,
So
hmm.
that was my education.
All right, very nice. Very nice. So that means you have years of experience then. So everybody wants to know also, how long have you been doing therapy for?
Well, even though I started late, I actually got close, probably about 27 years. Um, because I started back before licensure.
Mhm.
And believe it or not, if you were a bachelor level graduate back then, if you worked in a place where you had supervision from master's or doctorate level, um, you were good to go. So I was able to start really early. And what I did was, right after I got my bachelor's, I decided to get certified in TheraPlay therapy. And so during my master's program, I was hired by a private practice to do TheraPlay therapy with children and families. So even before I got my license, well, licensure came later, of course. I was able to do a lot of therapy even before I finished my master's program, I meant to say. So that was my education and how I got started.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. A lot of things have definitely changed, but I'm glad you were able to get started and pave the way for people like us. So
They
that's
have
awesome.
changed. And actually, in that private practice, I was still working on my master's program, and insurance companies covered all the therapy that I did because I was under supervision um, of a doctoral level counselors.
Oh, wow.
So things were a lot easier back then.
Right. I believe it. I 100% do.
Yeah. Well, insurance companies actually didn't even question whatever you charge, they paid.
Oh, no, that's even better.
It was amazing. So we call that the good old days.
Right. I believe it. The good old days. I wish we were still there.
I
Right.
know. Oh, anyway, so
Well, I mean, that perfectly segues into the next question about, what places did you start off working at? And as a result, what did you learn from working at those places?
um, well, I was hired after my master's program. I was hired, I left the private agency because I wanted to get experience in trauma work.
Mhm.
So I started working at Rockford Sexual Assault Agency and did work with children, adolescents, and adults. I actually developed the children's counseling program there at the agency.
Oh, wow.
Um, and I also developed a program that we would go out to the middle schools and meet and have groups with at-risk girls who had had some sexual trauma. So we met with probably about 7 middle schools here in Rockford. And we had weekly group meetings throughout the whole school year. So I had a lot of experience, a varied experience. I also did some group work at a residential facility in Rockford called the Mill.
Oh, yeah.
And I also did some group work at Rosecrans for adolescents. And it was there that I realized that was not my niche, working with treatment. That my niche became trauma, working with trauma.
All right. Definitely. Well, I know definitely a few of those places. I even worked at one. Right.
I know you did.
Right. So it sounds like you, of course, have this wealth of knowledge and information, and you started and helped out a lot of people. So what made you give all that up to go into private practice, right? What was that process like?
Well, because I had started later on in life, I thought, I would love to be my own boss.
Oh, yeah.
In my previous work experience, I was a secretary for, many, many, many years, and administrative assistant. So always had to work for someone. Some were good, some were not. So I thought, I would love to have the opportunity before I retire to be my own boss.
Right.
So I took Norm Dazenbrook's workshop and bought his book and did everything that book said to do and started a private practice. And the other reason I wanted to do private practice is because I wanted to do more than sexual trauma. I wanted to work with veterans and, other kinds of traumas. So I ended up doing trauma work with domestic and international adoptees.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I did. I worked with a lot of children that their play therapy came in, really, really handy that I had that background. And then I got trained in sand-tray therapy also. So in a private practice, I didn't have my own playroom. So one of the drawbacks was getting sand in my little room.
Right, I can believe that.
Yeah. So I guess that's why I went to private practice. So I could just determine what kind of clients I would have, what kind of hours I wanted to work.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I worked more hours in private practice than I did at the agency.
Wow, yeah, I can believe that.
Yeah.
All right.
So it was a great experience. And in 2018, I retired and closed my practice and then became ICA president.
Right. Right. And before we even get into that, right, talking about, because of course you were both ICA president as well as IMHCA president. So what advice would you give to people that are looking to start their own private practice or even looking to close their own private practice?
One of the things, and I've mentored just a lot of young counselors over the years and adult counselors like myself that started later in life. The best way to really build a private practice is to become strong in something you're passionate about, finding your niche, whether it's, substance treatment or trauma like me, or working with children, being a school counselor. Some school counselors actually have private practices on the side. But finding your niche, something you're passionate about. And so my passion was trauma.
Right.
And so one of the things I did while I was at Rockford Sexual Assault was I went for EMDR training.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've told so many people that therapy built my private practice because it's so effective in working with trauma that I never had to advertise. There were times I had a waiting list
Oh, wow.
For people trying to get in just to do the EMDR therapy. So just finding your niche. And like I said, when I did groups out at Rosecrans, I realized that was not my niche.
Right.
That was not one of the areas that I would be good at. So I guess that would be my advice. Just really find what your passion is and get strong in that area.
Mm-hmm. All right. Definitely. Great advice. I definitely appreciate that. And I'm pretty sure everybody that's watching is appreciating it too. Right. We're learning a lot, believe it or not. So going back to something that you mentioned earlier. So of course, for 2 terms, you were IMHCA president from 2017 to 2019. And of course, after that, you were ICA president. So I want to focus on that a little bit with these next set of questions.
Okay.
So first we'll do IMHCA, then we'll do ICA.
All right.
All right. So first, what led you to run for president for IMHCA?
Well, it was like transitioning from being a board, getting on the board first,
Mm-hmm.
and serving on the board, and then realizing that this was just an amazing association. Just meeting the needs of counselors across the entire state and all those services we were providing, and how hard the board worked, to be able to meet those needs, providing workshops,
Right.
Just mentoring counselors, growing leadership. And so I think I served as treasurer for a couple terms, and then I was vice president for a term. And so when I was asked to run for president, it was kind of a natural, going forward into that office. And so I was, like you said, I was president for 2 terms. And one of the things that I've always encouraged counselors is to get involved on boards, whether it's IMHCA, we have 13 divisions, in ICA, because I believe that we need to be giving back to our profession.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
And this is such an amazing way to give back to the profession, to serve on these boards so that this organization, both IMHCA and ICA, can keep growing. Other states, their organizations have not been able to keep going. Some of them actually totally disbanded and are starting from scratch. So that's why I became IMHCA president. And it was just a privilege to serve with, and working with IMHCA board members was just a delight. Our meetings are, we worked, but they were fun.
Right.
And just meeting, and getting to know people and forming lifelong friendships while serving on this board. So those are all good reasons to get on a board.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I 100% agree.
Well, and you, Coresair, are one of those individuals that I brought into the board.
Yep, that's true.
I saw a young man that had great potential as a leader, and sent you an email one day and said, what would you think about serving on the IMHCA board? And you jumped on it, and here you are, president.
Yep, definitely. President years later.
Yep.
So it does work.
It does work.
So then, speaking of what works, what are some things that you are most proud of accomplishing as IMHCA president?
I looked at that question. I thought that's a very difficult question to answer because all the board members, we all work together on different projects. One of the things that I worked on with 2 other board members back when I was president was doing the bylaws, redoing the bylaws, which I believe, have to be redone every few years. But they hadn't been redone for a long time. So, and that was a huge project. So I felt like that was something that I contributed to, was to do those bylaws. And bringing new people onto the board, as future leaders.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So then what are some things you wish you had more time to work on as IMCA president, if there's anything?
Yes, there was. I really felt like I could have worked harder on developing the committees and, bringing the board members into positions where they were really working committees. Back then, we had an amazing director, Dan Stacy, who probably did so much work that we as board members didn't develop the committees. But I understand that that's being done now. And so that's really good to hear. So I think that would be the one thing that I would have liked to have done more.
All right, definitely. So now that you got warmed up on the questions, now I'm going to ask you the exact same questions, but for ICA. All right, so what led you to run for ICA president?
Well, that's an interesting question because I had to be talked into running for ICA president.
Oh, okay.
It was not something that had been on my radar. In fact, many times, because I knew how much work it was and how much time it took, there were times that, and what a huge responsibility, not just the time. There were times that I would say, that is something I will never do. I'm never going to be ICA president. Once I retire from my practice, I am just going to relax. And so I was actually talked into it. But as it turns out, it was just an amazing year of growing, even at my age, my old age, of growing and, again, meeting phenomenal people, forming new relationships, and, learning how to really preside over meetings such as governing board council and executive committee meeting. That was really intimidating at first.
Oh.
I enjoy doing webinars and presentations, but running meetings is, I'm going to say it, not my niche. But it was a great learning experience, and I'm so glad that I accepted the invitation to eventually run.
Right. Yeah, me too. Like I said, you fooled me.
Yeah.
It looks like you were a pro at running those meetings.
Thank you.
Right. So then what are some accomplishments that you're most proud of, and what are some things you wish you had more time to work on as ICA president?
The most accomplishment that I am proud of is I saw the need to do something in our southern regions of Illinois, south of Springfield. I mean, those counselors are just out there on their own. And as I communicated with some and asked them how they were doing, they just felt like, they were just out there. And so we really needed to do something. So what I did was I put together a proposal to form a Southern Regions Task Force. And so we now have a Southern Regions Task Force. And in our upcoming new strategic plan that we're now working on, that's going to be one of the task forces. So I'm really excited about that. That hopefully that will bring more members in, the counselors will feel connected. And one thing I'm really proud of is we now have, our new president-elect is from the Southern region. And so I really am excited that we have representation on our president's team from the Southern regions, because typically we've all been from the North.
Right.
So I guess that's my most proud accomplishment, Coresair.
All right, definitely. And is there anything you wish you had more time to work on as ICA president?
Honestly, I was so busy working on so many things and attending so many meetings, I can't think of anything.
Right. That's how it goes. That's definitely how it goes.
It really does. So, Yeah, I can't think of anything because I really did do a lot of stuff.
I know you were extremely busy. I didn't know how you did it, but you did
Well,
it with style and grace.
and many have done it before me and will do it ahead of me. So one of the wonderful things about the way the president's team is established is that we have the president-elect, which is the first year, then the president-elect, and then the president, and then the past president. And so you really have all this knowledge by the time you get to be president, because we have meetings once a month where we discuss, issues regarding ICA that we bring to the executive committee. And so, because it's really scary thinking of being ICA president. But if you know you're going to be mentored for 2 years before you have to go into this position, it really helps.
Oh, yeah. I'm 100% sure it does help, right? That way you can see the ins and outs. You're not surprised by anything. And yeah, you at least know what you're doing when you get in there.
Absolutely. And it's a wonderful group of people.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
All right. So then also, before we get into our final questions, is there any advice you'd like to give people that are starting out in the counseling field?
Yes. I was looking at that question and I thought, again, my other passion, ever since I started working at Iraq with sexual assault and started experiencing symptoms of vicarious trauma myself after about a year there, I developed a passion for self-care.
Right.
And in some circles, I'm known as the queen of self-care.
Oh, okay, there you go.
And this is something I just am committed to. And I don't think I would have lasted for nearly 27 years and not get burned out during any of those years if I had not been committed. And I learned that self-care is a lot more than just taking time off, getting my nails done, getting massages. Self-care is something that each counselor needs to develop. It has to do with mindfulness, breathing, establishing healthy relationships, and yes, taking time for yourself. So the president articles that I wrote in the ICA newsletter were dedicated to the different types of self-care that counselors need to do in order to stay what I call fresh and green. And in these articles, each self-care suggestion I gave was no cost, took a few minutes a day.
Right.
And actually, help to keep us fresh and green each day. So anyway, that's my suggestion for counselors in order to be able to remain in this field and continue their passion.
Yep, and definitely for those of you that are watching, I would go back and read those. Like she said, no cost, easy to do, few minutes, so it's not taking up a lot of time out of your day. Yes.
Right.
Stay fresh and green.
First.
All right. So then, before we get to the most important question, right, is there anything you would like to say that I haven't had a chance to ask you about?
Actually, no. I think I've added, bits and pieces throughout our conversation, and I can't think of anything else other than ICA, IMHCA, the divisions are just amazing organizations. We in Illinois are held up as one of the most primo associations in the United States for state organizations. And I don't think everyone that's a member really understands that or maybe really knows that.
No, that's true. That is 100% true.
Yep. So that's it.
All right. So then the most important question of the day, right? Drum roll. Where can people find you if they're looking to get to know more about you, what you do, and things like that?
Very easy. I'm sorry, there's a mosquito buzzing around my head here.
No problem.
Very easy. Nadia, Nadia, LCPC @gmail.com.
All right. You heard it there, folks. Nadia, LCPC @gmail.com. If you have any questions for her, please feel free to email her.
Yeah, please do. I welcome any questions.
All right. Perfect. All right. Other than that, thank you very much, Nadia, for taking the time to do this interview and answer the questions. Hopefully, we'll get to do a part 2 soon because I'm pretty sure there'll be more questions that I'll think of later on. Be like, oh, crap, I forgot to ask her.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Well, thank you for your invitation. This was very enjoyable.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. All right, everybody. This is Coresair Mack, President of the Illinois Mental Health Counselors Association, signing out, and I'll see you at the next interview. Take care.